amazing. Hey guys, it's Emily
And Clarissa.
and we're just going to show you a little bit about factoring. So first off, before we start our first problem, we'd like to review a little bit of cubes. Sometimes in factoring problems, you're going to get problems where you need to find the difference of cubes. The setup is quite simple. For the first one, you're going to see that it's a cubed. You need to find the cube root of it, and for this instance, it's just a. For the second one, the cube root of this would just be b. So now we go down to the setup of it. For the first one, you just put a minus b, and then you would take the a, and you would square it. You would take the a and the b and you multiply it, and then you take the b and you'd square it, and this is a basic setup. Now we're going to show you a really simple problem just to review more. So let's say we had a problem that's 8 minus 27x cubed. What we're going to do, like we did, is find our a term for the first one. So the cube root of 8 would equal 2, and the cube root of 27x cubed would be 3x. Now to the setup. You're going to take before, as we did with the a minus b, and you're going to do 2 minus 3x. Then in the next square, you're going to take the a term and square it, so 2 squared is 4. Take the a and b term and multiply it, so 2 times 3x is 6x. And then take the b term and square it, which is 9x squared. And this would be your answer. Now on to our first problem. So our first problem will soon involve a difference of cubes. But first we always have to remember to pull out the greatest common factor. In this case, it is 3x. So now that it's pulled out, we can see that we have a difference of cubes. So we find our a term again. So from 8x cubed, that becomes 2x. And from 125, that will become 5. Then, plugging it back into our simple equation as before, we have, of course, the greatest common factor, 3x, and then a minus b, so 2x minus 5, plus 4x squared, so a squared, plus a times b, which is 10x, plus b squared, which is 25, and this will give you your answer.
A simpler problem to do is 3x squared minus 7xy minus 6y squared. First, we know that 3x squared can be separated into 3x times x. But we need two other terms to add or subtract in the parentheses. They come from multiplying to get negative 6y squared. So factors of negative 6y squared are negative 6y and y, negative y and 6y, negative 3y and 2y, and negative 2y and 3y. The easiest way to explain this is guess and check, and the answer happens to be negative 3y and 2y. To check your answer, you would use FOIL and multiply 3x times x, the first terms, to get 3x squared. The outside terms, 3x and negative 3y, to get negative 9xy. The inside terms, 2x, 2y, and x, to get 2yx. In the last terms, 2y and negative 3y, to get negative 6y squared. And you combine like terms and you get your original answer. For the next problem, you'll have to know how to use difference of squares. Difference of squares is when you have two perfect squares that are subtracted, and they can be factored into their differences and their sums. So it's, if you have a squared minus b squared, it would be a minus b times a plus b. But this only works for the difference.
And so we go on to our third and final problem. But before we could even get to the difference of squares, we have to look at it. For this one, we have 4 terms. And for this one, another way to factor it out would be by combination. So what we do is we take the first 2 terms and we find the greatest common factor, which just happened to be 4x squared. And then we multiply it out and we get 2x plus 3. we take the second two terms and find their greatest common factor, which is -1, and we multiply it out to get 2x plus 3. And then, as we see the two terms are the same, that becomes our first term in our factoring problem. And then we take the 4x squared minus the 1, and that becomes our second term.
And so then we use the difference of squares to see that 4x squared minus 1 can be factored into the square root of 4x squared, which is 2x, minus square root of 1, which is 1, times the square root of 4x squared, which is 2x again, plus the square root of 1, which is 1.
And that's your answer for the third one, and that's all.